Hello and welcome to Pat Bear's Anime Club, yelling about the shows we love. This is PAX Online East, I think we're calling it, 2021, because maybe this won't be the only PAX Online this year, because doing PAXs for an audience, who knows? I'm speaking towards the future. Did that happen? Weird. I'm joined by Ian Horner. Hello, Ian.
Oh, hello, Pat. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, welcome. And Heather Dery, welcome. Heather, welcome.
Hello.
Hi. We'll talk a little bit about y'all and what the panel is in just a second, but I do want to thank everybody for joining. This has been recorded in advance, shown here on Twitch as part of PAX Online 2021. I want to thank everybody at PAX for having us. I thank you for having this panel. And yeah, enjoy it. You can find me in the Discord while this goes out the first time. After the fact, you can find this archived later on YouTube. And I will have on my Twitter feed, if you go to my Twitter feed, I will have a list of all the shows we talk about here. Because we're going to be talking about them, but we don't have to scrub through. If there was a thing that we talked about and you were like, oh, what was the one about the girls that go to school? You can find it. Don't worry, I listed it. And in fact, we're going to jump over to our slideshow here so that we can show, hey, look, I found your animated faces for our guests. Both of you are, of course, from Loading Ready Run. And also you have Twitter and your own Twitches as well, so we included those. So people can see you stream video games and talk about anime on Twitter, among various other things, which is
You're
always fun.
moderately online.
Yeah, moderately online. I think both. I'm very online. You can find me. I'll plug myself at the end. You can find me online. And also, just about every day I'm talking about anime because I watch a lot of it. And I talk about it all the time. And that's why we're here. We're here to yell about the shows we love because we watch anime and we would like you to watch the shows we're watching because we want to talk about those shows. And it's so hard when you really, especially when you really love a show, when there's a show that really appeals to you and speaks to you, it's so hard to not have anybody else watching it. Also, especially if they would like it, if you know that people would like a show, because we all have those shows that are just for us, and you're like, this fits my specific likes, and it's so me, and I can't imagine anyone else would love this. But then there are other shows where you're like, hey, you would love this. Please watch it. Don't wait 5 years and then wonder why no one told you about it. Please just check it out. So this is how this works. We're going to yell about anime. We're not really going to yell, but saying yelling is better than just being like chatting. There's going to be swearing. We're going to be positive, but also if there's some bullshit in the show, we're going to tell you about it. Because we don't want to be the person that recommends a show to you that 5, 6, 7 episodes in, you're done with it because a thing happened that is just a no-go. We don't want that. We want you to go in informed. So we're going to answer the question about each show. Is there a Mineta? Now, if you haven't seen My Hero Academia, the Mineta is he is a character there to be hated. He's a garbage boy. He's a little trash boy. And not every show has a physical character Mineta, but some shows have content. They have thoughts and things like, the example I often use is if I was going to recommend Fire Force to you, which has a good boy protagonist, great animated flames, is a good shonen, I would have to tell you that show hates women. It absolutely hates women. It thinks it's fun to make them just terrible caricatures. And you need to know that going in because I don't want you to watch that and then be like, hey, Pat, what's up with the girl that has bad luck and her clothes fall off all the time? What's up with that? And what's up with the girl that like thinks that when people complimented her, they're calling her a gorilla? What's up with that? And I would have to be like, shit, I should have told you that happens in Fire Force. I'm sorry. So that's why we talk about the Minettas on the show. And each of us we're gonna talk at length about some shows, and then we're also gonna talk some quick picks at the end, some real fast, like, hey, check this out. Here's a couple sentences about this. Heather and Ian, are you ready?
Oh, I'm excited and ready.
Fuck yeah, said yelling voice to get all 3 rolls at the same time.
All right, great. Let's get through the rolls. We got my pick up first. There's me as a Gundam. There's me as a Death Scythe. Hey, if you have hey, if you want to just like pay someone to make emotes, you could just have them make you. That's just the thing you can do. You just be like, hey, I have money. Make me a Gundam. All right. And speaking of Gundam, I'm going to start with Iron-Blooded Orphans, which is, I haven't talked about a Gundam show at any of these live. This will be the 3rd live show, and it felt weird that I didn't talk about a Gundam show on this yet. We did have Rekko G talked about in the last one, so there has been a Gundam, but I want to talk about Iron-Blooded Orphans because if you're unfamiliar with the Gundam series, you probably at least know that if you're in a world where there are huge mechs used in war, that's not necessarily the best world, and that, of course, relying on that is probably bad. So there's always going to be a conflict. Does every Gundam show involve people deciding to crash colonies onto Earth? Not everyone, but a lot of them. There's always conflicts. This takes place 310 years after the Calamity War, so you can understand how that went. Because they call it the Calamity War, yeah. Where Gundams were used, and there's still some Gundams floating around. Now, you probably can tell in that photo, you get a look at the Gundam there. One of the things I really like about the show is that the Gundams, well, most of the time you're going to have a humanoid-style form in your Gundam and your mobile suits. These take the names of demons. They all have demonic names from the Book of the Dead, and they all have, like, they're hunched over. They're like look like talons for hands. There's this like demonic presence to the Gundams, which I really love about the design. They're not cute. A lot of the show focuses on mobile suits that have weapons that are modified construction tools. So yeah, there's some swords, but there's also like the Jaws of Life. And you can probably imagine what the Jaws of Life held by a Gundam would do to another mobile suit.
It's very brutal in terms of a Gundam series.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is brutal. Again, I joke about this. It's called Iron-Blooded Orphans, and it clues into big themes that you're going to find in Gundam shows, right? You're going to have your like, what is the face of war? What are the casualties of war? Is there a good and bad side in conflicts? What does humanity mean? What does it mean to survive? All of those big Gundam concepts. A concept that sometimes is overlooked in some Gundam shows is these are fucking children piloting these mechs. New types are not. These are kids. These are teens. Like, a thing that kind of never gets said in Gundam Wing is, hey, you're all 14. Shut the fuck up. Like, what? We're putting children in these roles. And Iron-Blooded Orphans at the front and center is talking about child soldiers, the concept of child soldiers and survival and how bleak this is, even though there is hope. And in many ways, it's like putting children in charge of helping a representative of Mars get to Earth to negotiate like independence is a fucking lot to put on kids.
To Edmonton, Alberta, I might add as well.
Yes.
Is that this one?
Yep, that's this one.
Okay.
They call the fictional city of Edmonton, which in a couple episodes, the backgrounds are literally animated backgrounds attempting to recreate specific places in Alberta, Canada.
Yeah.
I didn't get that the first time I watched it. Um, because I was not as familiar, but eventually someone just said like, yeah, that's Canada right there.
As an Edmonton native, it was uncanny.
Great. So talking about if they're a Mineta, yeah, I mean they're look. Do all your favorite characters die in this show? No, not all of them. And I'm going to tell you that, audience. That's the thing. It's bleak in many ways. I will say it doesn't feel frivolous in it. It's not a show that is giddy in and in the deaths that happen. There are often a point, or if there isn't a point, that's the point, kind of, if that makes any sense. But it's hard. It is hard to watch. I don't know. I can't tell you if this is the great jumping in point if you've never watched a Gundam show before. Um, I don't know if there is because the originals are incredible, but also 40 years old, and so totally worth checking out, but maybe hard to watch. Orphans just plays into the greater continuity in the fact that it knows that the continuity exists, but it is its own self-contained story. So you can just go in. And of the self-contained stories, it's one of my favorites because I think you can just jump in. It's in high definition and widescreen, which to some people that's a deal breaker if it's not. So it whereas like something like Gundam Build Fighters is adorable. That's a love letter to people that love making Gunpla and watching Gundam shows. And I don't know if that's an entry point for someone that doesn't love that. Because you want to go like if you don't know that like yeah we don't talk enough about a couple mobile suits from G Gundam and nothing else from G Gundam like you know it might be lost on you a little bit. But then if you see, like a couple things in that show, it's there. Yeah. The point is, Iron Blood Orphans. It might be the perfect Gundam show for you to watch. But also, if you then jump to another one, they might not feel as heavy or differently heavy. If either of you have anything to say on that, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Iron Blood and Orphans. I am a avowed Gundam fan, but I really only recognize the Universal Century.
Hmm.
It's where all of my favorite shows come from. The Universal Century being that original Gundam and all the direct sequels and prequels to it. Everything else is what's called alternative centuries. You've got the century of Gundam Wing, and Iron Blood Orphans is a different one entirely. But I absolutely loved that series. I thought it really nailed down the feeling of Gundam. You mentioned child soldiers as an issue. This is one where they're soldiers, but they're not accidental soldiers. That's part of what the original Gundam was about. Is that all these kids were just kind of forced into the service out of necessity, out of to escape. Whereas the necessity that these kids in Iron Blood Orphans face is the necessity of needing to eat and have a place to sleep and live. And so they're already working as soldiers for cash, not just in a war. It's raw, it's brutal, it's beautiful, and I love it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that is our first show. We're gonna jump over to Heather pick. There's Heather, and
Yeah.
your first show is Fruits Basket, the 2019.
Hmm.
Yes, because this is a show originally was a 2001 anime that they only covered the first arc because at that time the manga was still being written. And I was so excited for this show to come out because it's a reboot. And they've been doing that a lot with some anime lately, like Sailor Moon, which for me was disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And Card Captor Sakura got like a new thing, and I was like, cool, but it's not what I want. And Fruits Basket finally came along and gave me what I wanted, a story that starts from the beginning and is probably going to go all the way through as far as I can tell because it's almost done. It's not quite there. I think it's still running its final season right now. But this show is it's about Toru Honda, who is the girl in the picture there at near the front on the left side. She has she she is basically an orphan. Her mom has died in a car crash, and she's gone to live with her grandfather. But then her grandfather's place is going under renovations, and his family members really are awful people to her. And she's like, "Oh, it's fine. I'll stay at a friend's place for a couple weeks. It'll be okay. I don't want to be a burden on anyone." But she so much doesn't want to be a burden on anyone that she doesn't tell her friends, and she lives in a tent outside that gets hit by a landslide. And then as she's like running to school, or I can't remember, they come across her because I get the manga start and the anime start mixed up. But she runs into this household that has these really neat stones painted outside of the Chinese zodiac. And that's where like a lot of the story focuses on, is the idea that the story of the Chinese zodiac and the order in which they occur on the scale is about how they all went to a party held by a god. The cat came late, so the cat never got to be included in that. And this family that she finds, the Somas, are cursed to turn into those animals when they are hugged by the opposite gender. So it's very cute at the beginning. She accidentally runs in and hugs the cat. He turns into an adorable cat. He's mad all the time about it. And he hates the rat because the rat tricked him and didn't do the thing. But they're not the original Zodiac. They're reincarnations of them, essentially. And it's just, for me, it's just this delightful story of nostalgia for the 2000s, of getting to watch this romantic comedy of this girl who also is kind of an outcast because she's too nice, but she doesn't want to be a burden upon people. And now she's trying to make her way, and she's made all these friends in this very powerful family that is super broken. Because when you have kids who, if you're the mother of who, and you have a boy, you can't hug. And so there's family problems. There's a lot of, and there's quite a few, and that would probably be like where I would say maybe there's some content warnings of, because there are things about suicide and family abuse and bullying, being neglected. The cat especially goes through a lot, because the cat is almost this other being of, well, at least we can look at the cat and say we're not the cat, and the cat's going to get locked up later, and that's the fate of the cat. And it's very sad in a lot of ways, and it is kind of one of those romance shows that's like, this show is designed to make you cry sometimes. But that's what I really love. This is for me, this is like Fushigi Yugi, even though it doesn't go as in depth as that, or Marmalade Boy, where it's like there are some real weird highs and lows, and but there's also just this cute aspect of, sometimes he gets turned into a cat, sometimes he gets turned into a mouse, and I'll talk to other mice.
Yeah, it's got that dichotomy of, this is very cute, and it's fun to see like the characters that interplay well together. Because often the characters in this show that go by gender lines of like, well, the males can hang out together because they won't accidentally turn into an animal around each other. But then also it's fucking sad, and characters don't always do the right thing. Even the characters we like, they don't always make the right call. They make the human call. Yeah, it can be a tough watch. I'm so happy it exists. I was so worried because another recent remake that didn't get it right is Orphan is back.
Oh, right, I heard that was coming back.
So they just redid Orphan, but the problem with that is that the jokes weren't necessarily great when it first came out, and they didn't fix it, so it just feels old and not good.
No.
Whereas Fruits Basket like felt not out of place, but like it felt that it had more depth than other shows when it first came out, and now it I don't know, it fits right in 2019 until now. It's just finishing up. It just seems like it like any other show. It doesn't feel like this is an old property they brought back.
Mm-hmm. But I really love that they still kept some of that older stuff, because like Sailor Moon went a hugely different artistic style, but also took out like all the slapstick stuff that the original had that I really loved. And in this one, they still do some of the stuff, like Yuki, who's the rat character, is sometimes known as like the prince at school, and he's like a sad prince because he never seems quite happy, but all the girls are crazy about him. And they do that fangirl thing of a bunch of them are all in a group together and they're so huddled together to be ready to mob him that the the you can't tell the individuals from each other. You can just kind of make out silhouettes and figures, and this like they're just ready to be like, none of us will get close enough to touch him, but we're all getting as close as we can. And that used to be a thing you would get in a lot earlier anime that I really liked that has phased out, but they kept here and it still feels good.
Yeah, I think overall it's I mean, honestly, it's just like you said, it's just nice that people are getting the whole story. We don't always get that. Because there's like, oh, this manga is popular. If we put the anime out, people will buy the manga. I don't know what's going to happen when we run out of manga. We'll just
Filler.
stop, I guess. Yeah, so to have it be like, no, we're going to do it, and we'll have like input from the mangaka, and like, that's always lovely when they're like involved,
Mhm.
Oh yes.
because it doesn't always go that way. And maybe sometimes they're soured on some other anime property that came out that they, had made. And so they're just like, oh, well, I don't know if we should redo that. But yeah,
Or they want to rewrite everything all of a sudden. They're like,
yes.
oh, well, I did that thing, but now this is more popular. We're going to shoehorn in some extra details that don't really need to be there.
Yeah. Or my vision has changed because I'm a far different person than I was when I wrote this. So now if we're going to do it again, we're going to do it. It's going to get weird. Yeah.
Evangelion.
Yeah. I mean, that's its own thing. It's its own thing.
Maybe we could talk a very long time on that, and we are absolutely not going to.
Yeah, we're not going to at all. Evangelion now fits in the category of, hey, you're getting more of that? Nice. That is how I think about many things out there in anime and video games and all kinds of things. Oh, you really like that? I'm glad you're getting more of it. Yeah, that's about it. All right, we're gonna move on to Ian's pick. Thank you very much, Heather. Ian, your first pick is Ideon, Space Runaway.
Space Runaway Ideon.
Ideon, yeah.
Ideon,
This is the
you gotta
best image I could find of it.
That's actually a really good image of it, actually. So yeah, what we were saying about Evangelion and not talking about it, no, I'm gonna have to roll those words back here because
Okay.
let's start off at the beginning here. I watched the Ideon and I put it on my list here as a recommendation because I want to roll it into this. There's a great show out there that's live action, so it's not part of this recommendation, called Blue Blazes, which is the story of the guy behind Eye Shield 21 and other amazing manga, and his story, a dramatization, a comedic dramatization of his time in university working with the people who originally founded Gainax. And there's a scene in it where Hideaki Anno is hiring people to work on the Daikon 4 animation. And he says, no, make sure that you're hiring all these people who've watched Gundam. And that's not enough. If you really want to understand Tomino, you have to watch Ideon. And I thought, well, I'll break that down and explain it, and I'll be all intellectual and fun. And then I watched the Ideon. And you have to watch the Ideon to understand Tomino. Yoshiyuki Tomino is the director of this series. You may know that name from such other shows as Daiturn 3 or Zabungle or Mobile Suit Gundam. And this was the series he made just after Gundam, and it really gave him the nickname of Kill 'em all Tomino because yeah, everyone is going to die in this. And when we get to the end of this description, you'll know what I mean when I say everyone. Because let's just go with the box text on it. Space Runaway Ideon begins in 2300. On the planet Solo, archaeologists have come across mysterious remains of 3 trucks and a ship. And they meticulously fix up the trucks, but can't get them to move for some reason. Suddenly, a humanoid alien civilization known as the Buff Clan comes across this planet, and a long death ritual begins. And it does. The show was originally slated for 43 episodes and was cut down to 39. In my opinion, the best way to watch the series is to watch the 2 compilation movies. First one gives you episodes 1 through 20. Second one gives you kind of 39 to 43, but kind of in a movie form. And this is because Tomino was kind of unhappy about how the first series panned out, and he wanted to kind of remake it. This is a theme for Tomino. He really likes to go back to his properties and remake them as movies to fix the problems that he had with them. But holy moly, is it an amazing series, and very, very clearly the template, I want to say, for Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's we all know I assume, spoiler horns for Evangelion and for the Ideon at this point. Toot toot. End of Evangelion, instrumentality happens. Or is supposed to happen, which is the melting of everyone down into the LCL, and we all come together in one large id. But that fails because Shinji, the main character, gains self-actualization and says, no, I want to be an individual. I want to make my own choices. I am worthy and need to be loved. And so the great big group hug of the universe doesn't happen. In Space Runaway Ideon, though, it does, because this robot is built by that ancient civilization to collect the consciousnesses and intelligence of people who have died from that civilization and die around it. This is a robot that runs on dead souls. And it gives the people on this ship time to reconcile with the Buff Clan time and time again. It brings them together through magical properties and says, hey, work out your differences. If you do, you'll have infinite power to make a better world for everyone. And people don't. And that's what makes this such an amazingly human story. It's absolutely brutal as well. People, we talked earlier about people dying in series to having meaningful deaths. Their death meant something. It pushed the plot forward. People die in this series the way people die in war. It just happens. You don't see it coming. It doesn't help things go along. People just die. And this is probably the first minetta that I'm going to mention here, that everyone dies. From the first death we get is our protagonist's father. Just straight up boulder comes up, he goes off screen, and you see the boulder in his legs come out, and it's shocking and it's quick, and then it moves on because you have to, because you're in the middle of a battle situation. Children are put in harm. Children, there's dismemberment, there is unfortunately regressive treatment of women. Thankfully, the movie version does not include the tear a woman's shirt off for public humiliation so all the officers can laugh at her, because the Buff Clan is based on a samurai idea of men and women. It's absolutely terrible there, and I'm glad that they take that out for the movie. But on the other hand, you then get these devastating moments where a woman on the ship of the humans, on the human side, has to confront one of the defectors from the Buff Clan. And she's sad because her mother's died, her parents have died, everyone she knows on her own planet has died. And she's facing this woman, and she fires off all of the shots in her gun and doesn't hit the person. Doesn't hit this betrayer, and keeps clicking and keeps walking towards and breaks down in tears, saying the bullets won't come out, and drops to her knees at the feet of this other woman, and she's embraced by the betrayer from the Buff Clan, and it's touching and horrifying. And I cried at the end of this series because it was so touching and amazing and human. And I mean, if you want a heavy series that means a lot and influences so much anime that comes after it, Space Runaway Ideon is not an easy anime. And it is not, I classify it definitely under advanced anime watching, but it is an important anime. So go into it with that in mind. But I think it's absolutely worth a watch if you have the stomach and the intellectual curiosity to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice sometimes to watch something and go, oh, I get a lot of references now and influences. There's those touchstone movies that you missed because, or TV shows because they came out before your time or when you weren't interested in the subject, and then they're like, and you've watched a lot of other things, and so you're like, oh. Yeah, I'm sure that folks that watch Evangelion would be like, okay, yeah, I can see why they were instructed to watch this.
Honestly, the best description I can give for this series is that it's actually a better Battlestar Galactica than Battlestar Galactica was.
Okay.
It hits a lot of the same notes. It has a lot of the same idea that it's this ship that's facing a constant invasion from an outside, more powerful power, and they're on the run all the time. Everyone is always under stress. But this one stuck the landing.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ian. Um, I do generally mean that. But yeah, look, while many of my show recommendations are going to be chill anime, it does not mean that Pat Bear's Anime Club yelling about the shows we love has to be only chill anime, because then I would just call it that. So yeah, we got if you want something devastatingly brutal, here you go. Try to find it. We're gonna jump to my second pick, which is Super Cub. At the time of this recording, this show is about to conclude. At the time of this broadcast, the show has finished up. It is part of the spring 2021 anime season. It is my favorite show this season. I could gush about this for hours, but I will tell you as succinctly as I can. The girl on the right, Koguma, the series literally starts with her riding a bicycle to school, and the internal monologue you get from her is that she has no family, she has no friends, she has no money. And that's the character. It's very muted music, that's muted colors. She's having trouble riding her bike to school because there's this hill. That's actually the very first thing she talks about is this hill. There's this bump in the road. And a couple people bike past her, and then somebody goes by her on a scooter. And she finds herself at a used lot looking at a Super Cub. I won't get too far into this. Honda Super Cub is a vehicle. They were widely used in Japan. There's new versions. These old ones were used and also used in America on farms. There are variations of them. Please consider these souped up, for the purpose of this discussion, consider them souped up mopeds or low-powered motorcycles. Like, they are classified as motorcycles, but they are not. They are Vespa. There are some instances of versions of souped up Vespas. I am by no means an expert in this, but this is.
They don't have a clutch. Is the big thing.
Yeah, they don't have a clutch. This is a thing, and they were popular for many a time, and they're one of those items that, if you ever wondered, are there people who are obsessed with those things? Yes. And the background of this show is that there is like a network of people obsessed with Cubs. And like, they're like, oh, well, for me, it's a Super Cub all the way. Or, well, I got to go with a Hunter Cub. Or like, well, I modified mine to do this. And well, I got a Postal Cub. I love my Postal Cub. Yes. And there's a whole community. And Koguma's not in that. She's in that community because she falls in love with her Cub. And we watch this girl that is on a fixed income. Clearly, she has some support from the government. Doesn't talk to anyone at school. Doesn't have she eats her lunch cold because waiting in line for the microwave and making small talk doesn't appeal to her. So she sits at her desk and eats her lunch. It's cold. Mm-hmm. There's no sunshine in her life. And then she gets her Cub, and she gets independence for the first time. She goes to a gas station. She goes to the grocery store to get food instead of having to wait for her day off because she can just go. She meets Raiko, the girl on the left there, who is a Cub otaku. She is a nerd about Cubs and is a fountain of knowledge. And they might not have become friends any other way, but they're in the Cub Club. They eat lunch together, sitting on their Cubs like they do there. You watch through the course of this series, Koguma become more of a person. The music changes throughout the show as her life, as the possibilities open up. There's more instruments in the background music. There's an episode dedicated to Raiko where the music sounds like it's like battle music in an RPG because her experience on her Cub is a different one, and her episode is different. The girl in the middle, who does not really show up until the end of the first season, she, or Shii, her name is She, they end up helping her out because they got cubs and they can get the job done. And that's brought up by Koguma. Koguma like goes out of her way to be of help because they can do it, and they form a friendship. She's got a little bicycle. She's got a nice mountain bike, but she doesn't have a cub. And it's this beautiful series about watching this girl that didn't think she had anything have a thing, and how that can change her life. There's an episode where she's got in her head she wants to get seafood because she's been saving her money to get this great seafood because their class trip is happening, and she wakes up sick, and then she wakes up a couple hours later and she's fine, and she could have gone on the trip but didn't. So she's like, all right, well, let me get out the map and let me look up stuff, and I'm going on my cub, and I'm gonna, I'll deal with the consequences when I get there. And it's just, you watch her learn like about it, and I can't tell you, this show is so slow and patient that watching her smile grow throughout the course of it puts the smile on your face, and you're cheering her happiness. You're cheering the little victories of like, oh, well, we got windshields and we got leg shields because it's getting cold, and I got a jumpsuit so that like the rain doesn't, because I got a rain slicker, so I've beaten the rain. Like, these little victories that the characters have become like meaningful, and it's a quiet, beautiful little show that I think like comes with my highest recommendation possible. It is, it's not for everybody, certainly. It's not an action show. It's not super funny. It's not full of lively characters. There are some that are fun. If the idea of being very proud of this character because she like walked through a high school she's not familiar with to talk to a teacher as part of the first day of her new job, and how big that is, if that doesn't appeal to you, I don't think this show will. But it does for me. And then as far as Mineta, this show has a cliffhanger towards the end of it. I won't go into details. I will say that like it feels weird that there's a cliffhanger, that there is a character in danger. That felt very out of place, but and I only say that as like a content thing because it feels out of place. Because this show is pretty breezy. In many other aspects, other than the heaviness of Koguma's past, but other than that, like this is just a fucking great anime that I'm so psyched about. Like, I like shows. The genre I enjoy probably most is girls really into a thing. That's my favorite subgenre of anime, and like, this is one of the ones we got this season, and it's the better of the two. And yeah, it's Super Cub. It's lovely. It's just such a great show. And I think these cubs are cool, and I've started to appreciate them. I've never been interested in getting a motorcycle or a Vespa or a scooter of any kind. So you don't need that love to come into it. You can just love that they love them, I think. If either of you have any thoughts on this show, feel free to jump in. But
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Heather.
I haven't watched this show, but my husband is watching it at Beach, and so I know exactly what scene you're talking about when you say that doesn't sound in place. And other than like that scene and hearing what you've described, I agree. That's just weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that the cliffhanger is just like what's happening, but other than that, aces. Ian, any thoughts on Super Cub?
Just curious. So this is more of you'd say a love letter to people loving Super Cubs than it is a love letter to Super Cubs.
Yeah, it's not. So some shows in the girls love a thing subgenre, like Laid Back Camp, is really about all the different ways camping is awesome and the girls that love it. Super Cub is about a young lady finding a thing to be excited about and how her world changes because of that. look, there's a manual. It's in loving detail. I've talked to a friend who's really into Cubs, and he was so jazzed about like putting the equipment, and like there's an old guy that like kind of helps them out a little bit, and like so there's a lot for people that are really into this. I mean, Raiko's an encyclopedia about Cubs and accessories, but to me anyway, it doesn't feel like it's bogged down in this is a show about how Cubs are awesome. It to me, it's a show about like that thing happens to be Cubs, but it's finding your thing in high school.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but certainly it comes with some knowledge. There's definitely some knowledge about it.
Oh, that's good to know that they're not there. Yeah, they're hitting the right notes.
Yeah, because there are some shows like we're not going to talk about Food Wars, but the guy that created Food Wars doesn't know a lot about food. He straight up had to learn while he was making it. So
Impressive.
like, yeah, it's impressive, but like that he didn't come in going, I want to make an anime about food. He was like, I guess this is a food anime. Whereas it feels like there's a lot of knowledge in Super Cub. But I highly recommend it. It's my show of the year so far, 2021. And it's just great. Okay, so we've got to move on to Heather's second pick, which is My Next Life as a Villainess. All Routes Lead to Doom.
So good. I'm so happy it's getting a second season.
Yep.
Okay, so isekai show. I'm actually generally not interested in the isekai genre as a whole because it typically goes in a way that I don't care for, but this one is the idea of a character becoming the villainess of an otome dating game. And I really do like otome dating games, so to see something that like brings out the tropes and deals with them, but also from the villain's perspective, is really nice for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
What we have is what's her name? Katarina. And it starts as her being an 8-year-old girl, being an incredibly spoiled brat, and she's got a visit from what's his name? I wrote it down. Gerald. Yes. The one with the red
cape
thingy.
Yeah, the one that's doing this.
Yeah, and they're both 8 years old. He's come to visit, and she's kind of trying to be all over him, but she's this bratty, self-centered girl, and it's like, okay, cool. This guy is very handsome, and we're all nobles, and she ends up tripping and hitting her head, and when she does that, she remembers her previous life as a girl who really liked otome games, was really into playing the dating games, and died on her way to high school because she stayed up too late playing the video game that she is now stuck in. And as soon as she realizes that, she's just like, oh my goodness, okay, I have to double check. I'll write down everything that I can remember. And what I like about this too is that she hasn't played every route in the game. She's played through a couple. She's got a friend that she kind of remembers has played through something. And so she's just getting all the details she can. The game, though, doesn't start until the characters turn 15. And so she's got 7 years to try and prepare. And every time she meets a new character, she's like, oh no, doom flag. How do I avoid? I have to figure this out. And every route that she is in as a villain, whether the main character, which is the blonde girl at the front who's got hands locked in with Katarina, if she gets a good ending, then perhaps Katarina will end up exiled.
That's her best option in the video game.
Her best option
that she has played is that her best bet is being exiled.
Yeah, if the bad ending happens to the protagonist character, she's gonna get sliced with a sword, and we can't have that. So she's like, great, inside my mind meeting now, time for 5 little versions of me around a round table. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna figure this out? All right, plan. We gotta learn how to sword fight so that we can't be killed by the sword. Awesome. We should learn how to be a farmer so that when we get exiled, we can make our own food. Because that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's happening regardless of anything that happens. And And I'm like, okay, cool. But she's a noble, and she's an 8-year-old bratty noble. Except now she's not bratty anymore because her new focus is how do I survive to live past my high school self who died by staying up too late and getting hit by a truck, I'm assuming, because everyone gets hit by a truck in one of these things. And just watching then it turns into that thing of like all the boys being like, oh, she's not like those other girls, she can climb trees and it's so strange and amazing, and she's completely oblivious too because she's, as far as she's concerned, she's in the video game world and all these people are just characters. But if you're looking at the way the game actually shapes out, while she might be in that story, these people are kind of a little bit more third dimensional than she thinks of them as. And by becoming friends with everyone, she's definitely probably made it so none of them want to actually kill her at any point or would even have anything happen like that. But she keeps stealing their little events, which I really love, completely by accident because she's just like, I like sweets. Oh, and she's over there suddenly, and then later she's like, oh right, that scene belonged to so and so, and I said all the things he said. Well, good for me. I don't have doom things happening.
Yeah, this show, it's great because she comes across in her mind. She is a knowledge. She has knowledge, right? Because
Mhm.
she knows how the game is played out. But she's also just dumb in
Yep.
lovable ways. So she doesn't realize that all the characters around her have changed because of her positive influence. Like, and also are all in love with her. She
Yep.
has no
All of them,
clue.
including the girls.
Yeah,
It's
she has
great.
no clue that she is the main character in a harem anime. She just thinks that she's just like, yeah, so like, even though she's had all this time to prepare, she also is like only thinking about what happened in the game and doesn't realize that like no, she's already won. Because even when like events trigger that are supposed to happen, they don't make sense because people are like, well, she couldn't have done that. There's no way she did that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do like that in because technically one of the other girls, when she meets them, she's like, wait, she's also a rival who should technically have bad things happen to her, except she just ends up leaving in the good ending and nothing bad really happens to her if she loses. What why do I have to be this main villain who basically instigates all the other bad things, which is, I mean, a good reason why none of the bad things are really happening in the way that they're supposed to. She's supposed to be the ringleader of all the bullying and stuff, and she's not doing that. And I just, there's something really nice about watching her just be like, all right, cool, I can't notice for a single second that those two guys like me, but they keep hanging out with each other near me. They must be best friends. Time to go make some more snake toys to throw at the other guy because it's the only weakness I could think of, and I will scare him with snakes when he's 16 and then he can't kill me.
Yeah, it would, if she was as knowledgeable as other characters are in other shows in that world. I don't think the show would work. It wouldn't be as charming. But yeah, her be because like because there's like, oh well, because she even's like, I can figure this out because he's only 8 and I'm a teenager, so I can take care of him. It's like, no, you're not equipped to outsmart anyone. But she has just like a great soul and a great energy, and everyone's just drawn to her. And then you're like, oh well, one character might not be in love with her because she wants her brother to be in love with her. Oh nope, nope, nope. They all are. Okay, nope, they
Yep,
all
every
are.
single one.
Every character is just like fully in love, from
Yep.
the not actually a brother but raised like a brother to the aloof guy who, my favorite is the guy in the corner there in the jacket, because he's supposed to be like a ladies' man heartthrob and a bad boy, but because he was friends with her, he isn't that at all. But his character doesn't know how to not. He's still drawn that way.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, her raised as a brother Keith character is supposed to be basically, originally she's supposed to end up bullying him for being not her real brother and this outcast thing. And so he gets super lonely, and then because of that he becomes a playboy, except she was just like, well, I'll just I'll give him lots of attention, and she does, and he doesn't get lonely. So he does the accidental thing where girls think he's really cute, but he's not the playboy character, but she still thinks he is. So constantly she's like, "Did you hit on that girl? You must have. Like that's part of your character."
Yeah, instead he has a complex that she saved him. Uh,
Hmm.
it's just different. It's just very cute. There's a second season. I'm excited about that. That's coming up. At the time of viewing this, as part of PAX Online, that is out, I believe.
I think
So
so.
yeah, go get caught up on that because it's real good. Um, and there is a manga spin-off where she doesn't wake up until she's already in high school, and I haven't read it, but I love that. I love the idea of like, how would this show be different if she was suddenly like remembered that she's in a video game, but she didn't have the time to change everybody.
Oh,
So
I want that.
Reintegrate to society.
yeah, I think that's a really cool idea, a cool way to play with it. All right, well we have time to get through everything else of the show, but we're gonna pick up the pace a little bit. Ian, I am not trying to say don't talk a lot about this because I feel like you're probably going to have to. Mind game.
Thankfully, I don't have to say too much about it
Okay.
because I don't want to give everything away. I do want to say right off the bat that this is tied with Castle of Cagliostro as my favorite movie, period. Not just anime, not just animation. This is probably one of my 2, 3 favorite movies. It's also directed by Masaaki Yuasa, who you probably will recognize from things like Kemonozume, Adventure Time, and most recently Japan Sinks 2020. Science Saru. This was his first film directorial debut. The story is about Nishi, an awkward young manga artist who has a long-standing crush on Myon. Unfortunately, Myon's got the hots for someone else, and there's a whole thing that happens inside their sister's yakitori restaurant where they meet up with some gangsters, and tragically, Nishi is killed. Um, but he pulls a fast one on God, gets sent back to Earth, and then ends up after a car chase in the belly of a whale with his love interest, her sister, and a man who's there for some reason. And it's surprising how many twists and turns there are in this film. The film is extremely upbeat and incredibly funny for 99% of it. We'll get to that in a second. Every time I watch this film, I get that good feeling. I pick up on new details. There are characters from so many different sides, from gangsters to people in the past to this family, and their stories are woven together. Like you can see the threads coming together in this movie over the course of it, and gives you a wonderful, sort of a ambiguous ending too, which is nice. And just a beautiful scene in the whale escape. The very fact that he pulls a fast one on God is a great line and a great thing that happens. It's actually got my favorite depiction of the afterlife and the concept of God I've ever seen in any form of visual representation. He meets God, and God just keeps changing. Like every 2 frames, he changes appearance into a different something, and it's fast and furious. And of course, God's a real asshole about everything. I got a date. I can't deal with you. You need to go to the afterlife. Get out of here. But it's beautiful film. The mixture of photographic photocopied elements as part of animation at some times, and then just that Masaaki Uasa wacky style animation working together with it. It's a good time. It's a good film. There's just one scene you got to watch out for
Okay.
because it contains some really, really graphic depictions of attempted sexual violence against women, graphic violence, and the murder of the main character by getting shot through the back of the buttocks.
Okay.
Yeah, but once you get out of that, the whole movie is incredibly positive, incredibly body positive, gender positive, just fun in general, and all about a sort of a coming of age discovery, self discovery story by getting swallowed by a whale.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Ian. I'm yeah. This has been on my like list of movies to watch. I'm usually more inclined for TV rather than movies, but this has always
Mhm.
been on my list, and yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that.
I can't give you a higher recommendation than Mind Game.
Well, thank you. Now we're gonna do one quick picks, which are literal like 1 to 2 line explanations of why you think this should be something someone should check out. I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna rail through these real quick. Slime Diaries. If you've been watching that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and you were bummed that it's moved from a weird isekai to a more traditional modern isekai, and you wish it was more wacky like it used to be, watch the Slime Diaries. It's based on the spin-off manga. As you can see, it's more chibified versions, more like light versions of the characters, except for Geld for some reason is exactly the same. But it's just like wacky hijinks, like lots of parties. Like, we should have a Christmas. Well, what's Christmas? How do I explain what Christmas is to monsters? Well, it's a party and we all dress it like this. And they go, okay. It's light and breezy. And yeah, if you were like, oh, I wish that Rimmer wasn't a mass murderer, like, well, watch this version. Non Biyori. I'm going to look, this is going to be what, spoiler, I'm going to talk about this at length at another Pat Bear's Anime Club. Non Biyori is beautiful. It's Azumanga Daioh that's a little less wacky. In the country where there's 5 students at a school, they're all different grades, and they're all just trying to be kids and it's weird. And Ren-chan is the most precocious girl in the world, which I usually don't like, but in anime, but in this case, I love it. And it's just weird and great. And the brother is in the background there, and he does not have a voice actor. 3 seasons in a movie, they never gave him a voice actor because he doesn't talk. And I love that they fucking kept with that.
Great to save cash.
Yes. It's a great show, and I'm definitely going to talk about it in more length, but Non Biyori, they just wrapped up. It's over, so you can watch all of it. But yeah, Heather's picks. Heather, you picked Kaguya-sama Love is War.
Yes, because as generally gay anime puts me off because it's gags mean weird sexual things, but in this, and they're a little in here, but the concept is we've got 2 student council members who both like each other, refuse to admit that they like each other because they've decided that confessing your love to the other person shows that you're the submissive party and gives the other person too much power. And because they're the ones of a high ranking family, they need to be the one who constantly has the power. So they're trying to trick each other into confessing to each other. At the same time, they clearly don't actually know that the other person likes each other. So, in kind of a sub level way, I really think they're more doing this to not have to feel like they might get rejected if they do end up being wrong and that person doesn't have that feeling towards them. There's a lot of background characters as well who are really great, who are a lot of fun, who help like get in the way of their way over the top plans to try and trick the other person into confessing to them by figuring out their routes to school and other stuff. But it's a lot of fun and I really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. And then also, I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level.
Yes, this is current as of recording this. This is still going on, but this is a isekai. Girl dies in her 20s by overworking. Finds out that's how she died, and is like, heck, we're not doing that again. Is given sympathy by a goddess who's like, I can reincarnate you. You get 1 wish, and she's like, cool. I want immortality because I'm gonna live the slow life forever and make up for what I did by overworking. And she's like, great. And the goddess is like, cool. Well, everything else is my preference, I guess. So you're going to be a witch and you're going to look cute and you're going to have a house. And she's like, great. And she gets into this world. She's just like, I want to do a little bit of work. So I'm going to kill 25 slimes a day. So I have enough money and I'm just going to enjoy life. And then 300 years later, and this is all really quick at the very beginning, but 300 years later, someone's like, hey, what are your stats at? And she's like, I don't know. Let's take a look. Oh, wow, you maxed everything out over 300 years by doing just that tiny bit a day. Wow, your stats are really good. Please don't tell anybody. I don't want to have to fight people. Oh, people found out. Oh, fine. Okay, I guess I'll make friends, which is okay too. Yeah, I really love it because it really hits that concept of overworking is bad. Don't do it.
It's very cute. It's an incredibly cute isekai. full of very fun characters. Also, the voice actress for Azusa is also the voice actress of the spider in Soma Spider So What, which is also an isekai. And it's very weird because they're on the same time now. And it's very strange to jump from one to the other. Ian, let's get through your picks here. Not get through, but let's get to your picks, I should say. Megalobox 2, Nomad.
Holy moly, Megalobox 2. No, Megalobox was my top anime of this year that it came out, which I think I'm going to call 2020 because it came in the tail of 2019. But yeah, it was my top. I did not expect there to be a Megalobox 2. Not the directors, apparently. It was a huge hit overseas, and so they were asked to do more. And boy, am I glad they did, because it's absolutely beautiful. They intentionally molested the look and the drawings to make it look like, and I quote, a rebroadcast anime from the past. They wanted to invoke that kind of feeling, and what I was reading an interview with the directors, and they specifically wanted to tackle issues of racism towards immigrants, which I find you don't honestly see a lot of social activism in anime. And I'm super glad to be seeing it in something that is this good, because follow up, they also wanted to tackle the issues of toxic masculinity within found families and the cycles of toxicity. And I'm like, yes, do this all and wrap it together in great, memorable characters, just absolutely undescribably good music. It makes you want to watch Creed, and then you think about it just a second more, like, no, I'm going to go back and watch Megalobox again.
Hell yeah. Okay. And your final quick pick is Godzilla Singular Point.
Oh my gosh, that is definitely not the picture I would have associated with that.
No, I don't know. I haven't seen the show, so I didn't know what image to pick.
It's so cute, and Jet Jaguar is so good in this movie. If you like Godzilla stories the way I like Godzilla stories, which is to say you understand that these stories are actually about how humanity reacts to the existence and the consequences of living in a world with kaiju, and not just about big bad robot smash. That's what this story is. You're actually getting two parallel stories of an engineer, this kid engineer, who works with a group that built the Jet Jaguar robot, which is useful, and this super hyper intelligent teenage girl who has an AI that hops bodies, and from like a tiny robot dog to a brick to in the cell phone. It's some of the best AI contemporary robot designs I've seen, but it's a beautiful story. It's going to be self-contained. You can see exactly where these two parallel stories are going to converge in a singular point. And it's a good time. Highly recommend.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to Heather and Ian for joining me. We're going to get into the wrap up here. You can find them on Twitter and Twitch. Please check them out. And also, you can find me at /Pat Baer, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Patreon. I'm on all those places. This has been Pat Baer's Anime Club as part of PAX East Online, or PAX Online East, however they're calling it. I'm sorry. Camp PAX is the theme this year. And I want to thank you both for joining me. You can find this, it'll be on youtube.com/PatBaer up after the Monday after this goes out here to PAX. You can find that there along with other things. There's a playlist of Pat Baer's Anime Club, the live shows I've done, as well as every other Monday I just put out an episode where I talk about themes. So recently I just put up one about the spring season, my thoughts on the spring season, and a preview of the summer season. And also the one right before that was queer anime, because it was June and Pride. And so I talked about a few maybe overlooked shows that are very cool in the world of queer spaces. Thank you all so much for being here and watching. Thank you to Ian and Heather, of course, for joining me. I hope that everybody enjoys PAX, and we'll see you again soon. And goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.